Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Frankie Corrado, Mike Johnson will join us here in a moment. Johnny's out in Montreal. Leafs Habs tonight, Leafs Habs tomorrow. It'll be a pretty good little road trip, I would suggest. You want to get out to Montreal and catch a couple of games. Always an electric atmosphere, right? Even in the preseason. And I think it's going to be, there's potential for a really fun few years coming up, hopefully with the Eastern Canadian teams. And Ottawa is the team knocking on the door, and the idea of the Battle of Ontario returning, I think is very enticing. I think Leaf fans, Sens fans craving that. That was the coolest rivalry of my lifetime. I know history would suggest Leafs versus Canadians, but the Battle of Ontario in the late 90s and early 2000s, that was the cream of the crop. And if that can return this year, that'd be great. If Montreal can improve and get a little bit better year over year, you could have a three-pack, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. I don't recall the last time that happened where all three teams were, really knocking on the door. And
it seems like you talked about it earlier, Hazy. I think they're cooking on a bit of a slow burn right now. I think it might be 2 or 3 years before they're really dialed in. I hope so anyway. Any longer than that, I think the market's going to be like, okay, guys, that's 5 years. What the hell's going on here?
It's kind of like they bought into a little bit of a slow burn over there. And their prospect pool is actually pretty good. Like down the road, they should be good. But when you talk about the Battle of Ontario potentially heating up, it has that same kind of vibe that it would have had in the early 2000s. Where Alfie's like the antagonist. Like I look at it now, if you're looking at the players that would be involved, Brady Tkachuk would be the ultimate antagonist in that. And Matthews and Marner, like in this market for sure, are going to be the protagonists. They're going to be, they're not doing the stuff after the whistle. It's going to be Brady Tkachuk stirring it all up. Like it has a lot of potential to be explosive relative to what the game is today, not what it was at that point.
Right. You're not going to get back to Domi fighting Chris Neil 3 times.
No.
And like
Hazy, if Montreal is going to get back dialed in, Don LaGreca talked about it yesterday. Kakko and Lafreniere, they've got to step up and be the players they drafted them to be. This Slavkovsky in Montreal, he's got to establish himself as a power forward that can bang in 25 or 30 goals a year, and then he becomes a player that's leaned on as the number 1 overall pick and a guy that's relied on in the future. Nick Suzuki only get better. It's not like he's tapped out and it's like he's the captain of the Canadians and he is what he is. He's got room to grow. Cole Caulfield's got to be a bona fide goal scorer, 35 goal scorer a year. And if those things happen, then they get better and then they grow. But it's on those young kids to take that step.
Yeah, those are the 3 guys. And Slavkovsky in particular, because first overall picks, it's such excitement in the marketplace when you get that pick.
And you can't miss them.
But you cannot miss.
No.
But it is the luck of the draw when you get it. Right, when you get up there.
It certainly is.
Because, you mentioned Lafreniere. That was not a great draft. He was the lock first overall pick. He was all year. That was not the case with Slavkovsky. That was going to be Shane Wright. It was more than likely Shane Wright that was going to be the first overall pick. It turned into Slavkovsky. But sometimes you get it when McDavid's up. Sometimes you get it when Yakupov's up.
I know, but I'm telling my coach, my scouting staff, Brian, that if it's not McDavid year or it's not Austin Matthews, I want you to be able to say, we're not going to take Lafreniere. We're going to take the Sanderson kid first overall and have some stones and get it right.
Or Logan Cooley.
Or whatever it is. It's like if it's not McDavid, I just because Craig Button or the Central Scouting List has a guy at 1, it doesn't mean we're going to take him. It's not a McDavid year. We got to get the guy that's going to be the best. And if it's off the board and people go, wow, but it works, I don't care. It's your job to figure out who's going to be the best.
The biggest excuse for this, little time period, especially the Slavkovsky draft, is that it was COVID. So these guys weren't getting to watch these guys play. Like the OHL season was canceled, all that kind of stuff. Going forward, though, that's going to be eliminated. But I will say this. Teams have missed first overall picks when it wasn't COVID. You know what I mean? Like, so there's still that level of error that exists. Like the Nail Yakupov, it wasn't COVID. They got to see him all year long.
My dad said, I'm taking the Stützle kid if I'm the Rangers. That's the guy I'm taking. So how the hell does he get it right and the Rangers don't?
Yeah, and in retrospect, clearly that was the play. That was the play. But it's all revisionist history now. And, if you're Ottawa, you got Stützle and Sanderson in that draft. Like that was a scenario where they I think might have been the worst team in the league too, and they dropped back based on the lottery. Yet it doesn't matter. It worked out, right? Colorado, worst team in the league. They dropped to 4. Who'd they take? Cale Makar. Pretty good play. Pretty good pick. Pretty good play. Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Johnny, we were just talking about, draft picks, first overall picks. The Leafs, when they got it, it was a Matthews year. It was a lock. You take him. The rest is history. When the Habs got it, it was Slavkovsky. And we're not quite certain what he's going to be.
No, I mean, sometimes you win it, it's LeBron James. Sometimes you win it, it's Andre Bargnani. Like, it doesn't mean Bargnani's a bad player. It's just like, that's not the year for you. And Montreal may be in that. You got to remember, too, though, that Slavkovsky is still a teenager. He played last year for the first time in North America, the first time in a league where people are as big as he is that might bump into him. And he struggled a little bit. So, I think Montreal drafted him, and when they drafted him, they said, we're drafting the guy we think is going to be the best player in 4 years. Not in 1 year, in 4 years. And so, you'll have to wait and see. He's big, he's strong, he skates well, he shoots it hard. He's still adjusting to how to play offensively at the NHL level, but, Frankie was just mentioning, it's not like every first overall pick is a slam dunk and it's an aberration. Oh my, how could you possibly not get a guy who doesn't do really well in his first year? It happens. It happens more often than you probably would imagine. So we'll see. He's under a lot of scrutiny here. Like, I think Montreal's current staff is a good one for him because they have preached patience publicly as well as privately. Marty St. Louis gives them a lot of support. They don't, like, the organization is doing everything they can to deflect any kind of pressure, any kind of conversation about whether he's going to work out or whether he should be further along until down the road, which is about all you can do right now while he's trying to figure it out.
Johnny, Montreal, the pressure there in the market. Is it possible for Slavkovsky to play on the Montreal Canadiens and not feel the pressure like you're talking about? Like, I know Marty is preaching patience with the kid, and all that stuff sounds great. But can you avoid that by playing in the NHL full-time?
I would say no, given the reality of today's world. Now, different people are wired differently so that, if they feel that pressure, it affects them in a different way than it might affect others. But to suggest that you're going to block out the commentary, whether it's the radio, the print, the TV, podcast, whatever it is, general fans that, they're worried about you not working out or that, some people toss around bust and this and that, like, that's impossible for any young person who lives on their phone, which they all do, to avoid completely. You can try to steer clear of it. You can try to not let it block you, but to suggest you're not going to hear it, that's probably naive because it's impossible to miss. It's just, if you're wired the right way, maybe you turn it into motivation, a challenge, or at least it doesn't chip away at your confidence. Because when I watch him play, a lot of what I watch is a guy whose confidence needs to be propped up. He needs to feel better about himself on the ice. And so being who he is, where he is, that is probably harder here than some other places.
Johnny, do you ever think there's going to be a world where, like, training camp is shorter? I think the guys have kind of had enough of it, where it's like, let's play 2 or 3 and let's get after it because it's too long. And I think the players think it too, where it's like, let's get this thing fired up. Like, what's wrong with that? And I know it's about gates and money, but why can't that happen?
So you're 100% right. So I guess the argument for having it this way would be, you just said it, a lot of free gates. In Toronto or Montreal, they're getting 4 or 5 free home games. They're not paying anyone to play, and they get the whatever version of that money that comes in. That's part of it. We think of it only in NHL terms because that's the world we live in. But I think the organizations like the first 2 or 3 games where they get to play young guys, get to play minor league guys, throw junior guys a bone and get them in a game and see what they can do. I don't like it. I'm calling a game tonight where the rosters are not, stocked with NHL starting lineups, but the teams might like it because they're trying to learn something more about themselves. But the one way I could see it happening, though, because you remember when we were in training camp, it was like 3.5 weeks long. We would have like 10 days of practice before we even played a game. That's been shrunk down to like 3 days. If the NHL somehow decided they wanted to end their season by May 31st, right? Like, just tighten up the year by 2 or 3 weeks means you want to maybe tighten up when you start, which means maybe compressing the exhibition schedule from a 3-week session to 2 weeks. I could see them shaving time off training camp then, which would mean maybe 2 or 3 less games. Like if you play 4 or 5 games, that is more than enough for the NHL group to get whatever they're going to get out of exhibition games and be ready for the start of the regular season. Anything more than that is for people not involved in the NHL.
Have you placed your eyes like up close and personal on this Tyler Bertuzzi? And what's up with his look, like his skates, his stick? Like Matthews was describing his stick, like this guy pulls it out of a dumpster and basically just decides to go play hockey in the National Hockey League.
So, hey,
what? No curve or nothing or what?
No. Hey, watch tonight. So I told the guys, we're doing the game tonight. He's supposed to be playing in it. And I told him one of the things we maybe try to talk on a whistle or something is his sticks and his gear, because he is such a hot mess. It's like all like tongues everywhere and pants tucked and laces for his belt, but he doesn't have a knob. Like he doesn't put any tape at the top of his stick. Could you?
With a one piece, there's no tape?
That's what I'm saying. I've never seen anything like it. It's like slippery. You can't even hold on to it. So we'll see if we get a good look at it, and we'll try to maybe do something on the broadcast tonight, because I'm all for it. You know, we've done something on these crazy curves. Ryan O'Reilly had the broken blade and this, that, and the other. In my entire life playing hockey, I've never seen someone play a game without some sort of tape knob on the top of their stick. I've never. You know, there's small ones, there's little tape, there's long, whatever. But this, yeah. So we'll take a look tonight, Hayes. If we get a good look at it, maybe we'll try to do a little explanation of it on there, because it's unlike anything you've ever seen before.
Yeah, and I think even the blade, Johnny, they were like Matthews said he's got no tape on the top or bottom of his blade. He puts like ball hockey
down the middle.
Yes, it's like a strip of like rubber down the middle.
Now at least I've seen that. Like
low maintenance, boys. Low maintenance.
Puts a strip down and then puts like a little tiny strip of normal tape job, but you know they want it not on the top or bottom, but just maybe where the puck is touching. And I've seen some teams have like almost like rubbery sort of stickies. So it's like a sticker you just place on your blade down the front of it without going over top and bottom. But the whole package is just strange. It's so unusual. But without tape at the top, that is something I can't even fathom, trying to control your stick without something there to anchor your hand. So but it kind of goes with his style of play, sort of rough around the edges, sort of unconventional, but pretty effective.
Johnny, how much does Connor Timmins have to gain from the rest of this training camp? Like, if he keeps it going in the right direction, can he possibly be starting game 1 in the opening night lineup?
I mean, you think right side, if everyone's healthy, you got Brody, you got Klingberg, you got Liljegren, he's going to knock one of those guys out. I suppose it's possible. I'm not sure who it would be. I mean, I think Liljegren at this point really has a solidified spot. So, but if Klingberg's got something, which he does, then he can play himself into the guy who makes sure that he's the 7th defenseman, first guy in, or perhaps he can I don't know if he can play on the left side or who could, but you know, Mark Giordano, you know, maybe he pushes him to get more playing time. But what he can really do is, if he likes it in Toronto, he can make it sure that he's not going anywhere. There'll be no waivers for him. He's not going to go to the minors. He's going to be one of the 7 guys they carry, because if you try to get him through waivers, there's not a chance he's going to make it through. So, he's got lots to play for and lots of opportunity. I mean, again, tonight, it's a roster where he'll be able to play special teams. He'll play big minutes, and a chance for him to really step forward and make another statement case for himself that he's got to stay.
Let me rephrase the question. What does he have to do where the coach looks at him and says, you're in the lineup, and one of those guys you just mentioned isn't it? He can skate, he can pass, he can shoot the puck. Is it just an overall consistency and physicality that's lacking from his game, where Sheldon Keefe is like, that guy's playing and I'll figure the rest of the guys out?
I think it's decision-maker, no. I mean, I think right from his first game here last year, even though he hadn't played very much, you could see when he had the puck, he could really pass it well, and he felt confident making plays.
Okay.
But I watch him sometimes in his own end, and some of his decisions are not as crisp or clean or correct as you'd like your bottom pair defenseman to make. And so I think that's, you know, it's great to show that you can pass and jump up the ice, but whether it's the battles, but it's as much the decision on positioning, not getting caught in the wrong spots, stepping up the wrong way, being caught too far outside, little details that might not be obvious, but that Sheldon Keefe will look at and say, you know, he can't get beat there, and he got beat again. Like, that's the kind of thing that he's got to be mindful of more so than trying to keep putting up points.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, Andre Vasilevskiy, back surgery, out 8 to 10 weeks. What kind of effect do you think that'll have on Tampa's season and a ripple effect on the rest of the division and I guess conference for that matter?
If he comes back and is healthy, then I suppose it's not a huge thing for Tampa. They'll probably be good enough to deal with his absence, albeit they will pull themselves back to the pack with 2 months of no Vasilevskiy. But I think this is sort of how it happens. I think it's a sign of a greater concern for Tampa in that, guys get older. They get in their 30s. Things start to happen. Knees start to get a little sore. Backs start to get a little sore. And all of a sudden, Hedman, Stamkos, Vasilevskiy, Kucherov, these guys have played a lot. And that inevitable decline starts to happen. And it's a lot of times it's injury-based. And I think that's the greater sign. They won't probably run away with the division, but I'm sure they'll be fine in the short term. But I think about the Toronto Maple Leafs, like Martin Jones would have to clear waivers, right?
Yep.
He's the third. Like Martin Jones would be the kind of goalie that Tampa would go after. He's not a top flight guy because they're not going to get a top flight guy. They can't afford one. They need a guy who makes league minimum that they could then put in the minors when Vasilevsky's back healthy. That's Martin Jones. Like that's a guy like that. Spencer Martin in Vancouver, guys like that they would say, you know what, they're good enough, and then we can, unfortunately for those guys, get them off the NHL roster and not hurt our cap when Vasilevskiy gets back.
And they probably tried to get Spencer Martin today, but he ends up getting picked up by Columbus. Johnny, I wonder if you look at the Atlantic Division now and you say, okay, Tampa's losing Vasilevskiy, Boston's has lost Bergeron and Krejci, and that opens the door for a lot of teams. But with those two teams specifically, like, what's the bigger loss? Is it Bergeron and Krejci in Boston, or is it Vasilevskiy in Tampa? Like, who's going to suffer the most out of those two teams?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I just think Bergeron last year was still one of the best seasons he's ever had. And I think, he's such the foundational fabric of that team. It's hard to think that Boston won't really suffer without him around. And you couple that with Krejci, where they lost two of them, right? Like they're really short on that position. Vasilevskiy is maybe a better player than those guys right now, but I think Boston and Boston's going to take it. Boston, even if they have a good year, like what are they going to get? 105 points? They're going to be 30 points worse, maybe. And that's if they have a good year. 108.
Still a playoff spot. Like 105 is a playoff spot.
100% it is, but it's 30 points less than last year. So I mean, you have to think Boston is coming back in a big, big way.
Yeah, and I think that was going to happen even if Bergeron and Krejci were still playing, right? They had, what did they have, 137 points or something? Like, that wasn't going to continue. But I have to think it keeps coming back to Ottawa and Buffalo. Like, those are the two teams that are just on the outside looking in, teams that haven't made the playoffs in a long, long time. I don't think
need to take advantage.
That have to, right? Like, they had to anyway. And you can't wait for the big boys to completely fall off. Like, you probably got to go chase it and do it yourself.
Take it.
You got to take it yourself. Exactly. That's pro sports, man. You can't rely on other people to kind of fall off. But it can clearly benefit you if Boston comes back, if Vasilevsky's out for at least 20 games, if not more than that, or never really feels 100% at any point all year. Florida's dealing with injuries, and they barely got in last year, regardless of what happened on that cup run. It feels like it's primed for one of them, if not both of them, to at a minimum be coming into the final 5 to 7 games and have a chance. Like that's got to be the bar. Is it like, isn't that like the floor? Like Ottawa, I think most people think are getting in, but like Buffalo, we don't talk enough about, Johnny. But they got a lot of good young pieces. They got some fun, like entertaining players on that team.
Super talented players. Alex Tuch is awesome. Dylan Cousins is great. Watch out for Turka.
Yep.
Just saying nothing of Tage Thompson, who's as exciting as anybody in the league. Darlene Power, like you name it. But how good is Devin Levi? Apparently he's supposed to be very good, but who knows? And I know it's preseason. Buffalo doesn't defend particularly well. They didn't last year, and they're not so far this year. And very much the same story as Ottawa. Unless they sort of learn how to protect their own net better, they're going to be chasing it, no matter how much talent they have, no matter how many good names they have on defense or in net or wherever. Unless they figure out how to defend better, it's going to be tough. And if they do, then they're talented enough to make it. But they have to be looking around saying, okay, we have a great opportunity here. Like, look, what's going on in Boston? Vasilevskiy is out for however long, couple months. We get off to good starts. We're in this run right to the very end of the season, and maybe inside it if it all goes well. And that's what they're looking to do. But I think it was always going to be more about what they can do, and they have to show that they can do it. And we'll see if they show it. I mean, I'm watching Buffalo highlights. I'm like, this looks familiar, and not in a good way.
Johnny,
even though it's just preseason.
Have you seen some of the quotes coming out of Vancouver with Rick Tocchet early on? Like, he hasn't been shy to call out a few guys. He's saying the conditioning levels have been low. It's surprising early on to see that happening. But
how
I
could
just
you
wonder,
do that, Frankie? Showing up to a Rick Tocchet training camp.
Oh, you got to be crazy. You got to be crazy to show up to any training camp out of shape.
Well,
but
let's not go that far. But going to Rick Tocchet's is
he hasn't been shy. Let's say, and he's named guys. He's been very pointed, and they need to make the playoffs or at least be knocking on the door there. And he's already getting after his guys.
I think O said it. Were you not around the team last year? You know who your head coach is. You know what he's going to look for. And the very bare minimum that you should do is show up in shape, right? That's the easiest part. I know it's a lot of work, but it's easy to show up in shape and not give him that to latch onto. So we'll see. I don't know. It's been 3 years where it was Travis Green, and then it was Bruce, and now it's Rick, and they did well at the end of the year, and then they didn't start well, and that coach left. And they did well with Bruce, and then they didn't do well. Then
whose tower is he buzzing?
Well, Bruce, there he went, and then in comes Rick Tocchet, and they did better under him last year, and now we'll see what happens to start this year. We've seen this act before. They got to change it, but.
No, but I mean, who was Tocchet called out? It
was one of those energy. I think it was Tocchet Joshua. And he talked about him he's talked about this guy this is my kind of player. He's a 20-goal guy. He's talked very positively about this.
Foligno. Yeah.
Right. And then it was he changed the script and he was all over the guy. And I was kind of thinking about it this way, Johnny. If you're in meetings all summer with your management staff, all these the brass, and you're talking about certain players, you're like, I have big plans for this guy. I want this guy. And this name is constantly coming up. Then he goes out in camp, and he's not in shape, and he stinks. You look bad, man. You look bad after all those meetings when you're talking up a player.
Well, and what a letdown. How many Tocchet Joshua, respectfully, if you got a coach who wants to believe in you, that's you got to latch onto that in your career, right?
Yeah.
'Cause he's not always going to have that, and you had it, and you maybe tossed it away. And it was one of those things where they came back from not the 10-0 loss, I think, but the next game, and Tocchet Joshua was down with the non-NHL group. When they start splitting the groups up, even though they're all in the main camp, he got dropped to the lower group as they were they send a message there. So not great, but you send a message early because. There is no time to piddle around. That Pacific Division has some pretty top-heavy teams in it.
No kidding. Well, we still got about a week and a half, Johnny, and you got to survive a night in Montreal. So good luck with that.
Tonight and tomorrow night. I got 2 games here.
A 2-pack in Montreal. All right. Well,
let's see the barbell on Monday.
That's right. Keep your nose clean out there.
When did you get to town again, Johnny? When did you get to
got here Tuesday night. I moved in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tuesday
Say that again.
night.
I was here. I did the game on Wednesday. I did Ottawa, Montreal Wednesday.
Okay. I respect your game. I respect.
That's a simple email to travel saying, you know what? I'll just stick around.
No point in going back and forth. I'll get a lay of the land here in Montreal.
Make it easy on everyone. You're a company man. That's actually very professional, and I appreciate that.
Well, that's how I do it. Thinking of the company first, always ahead of myself.
As you should. Absolutely. Enjoy it this weekend, buddy. Good luck getting home, and we'll do it again early next week.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst.
Bunkering down.
Hunkering down.
In La Belle Province.
Yes, making himself very familiar with Montreal.
He's been having wine and cheese in the afternoons for 4 days.
On Crescent Street. He's sitting. I know exactly where he is. I know what he's doing, and I actually would like to live vicariously through him because Montreal is phenomenal. It's spectacular. Johnny joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. All right, you're off to do some panel work tonight. Leafs Montreal on TSN 4, so we'll catch you on a panel tonight, and we'll catch you next week.
Say hi to my Pardsy and tell him not to be stupid because he's starting to come under question a little bit.
I like it, and I will. Luke Wilson, you guys will have the picks a little bit later this afternoon for who else we're taking this weekend. Timo and Wilson up against Hayes and company. Frankie, you and I sticking around. Marcellus Wiley coming up on the statement by the Lions last night. Bills, Dolphins this weekend, among other big games. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. And Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza, the best place for any family meal. Today and tomorrow are your last chance. You got to get in there for the month of September. Kids eat free with minimum purchase when you dine in. So grab the kids and hustle into your local BP tonight. All right, Frankie Corrado, Bryan Hayes. Our boy Marcellus Wiley coming up here in a moment. Marcellus will join us on the statement made by the Lions last night. We just saw or just heard Taylor Swift coming in, right? Because T. Swift is supposed to be at MetLife this Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
Jets, Chiefs.
Yeah. Have you seen, the NFL is taking full advantage of this whole situation. They put out a promo tweet for the game, and it's like Taylor, Taylor, made for Sunday night with the Taylor Swift song and everything. Me, the conspiracy theorist skeptic who thinks this is fraudulent already, that kind of video kind of reaffirms my thinking that this is a completely fraudulent relationship, just
it's
a business
starting to get a little bit
relationship.
dicey. I thought I saw that maybe it can't be the Jets that are handing out wristbands or something, 1989 wristbands. There's no way the opposing team is going to do something to try to benefit from, another player's girlfriend in the stands. But up on FanDuel, you can bet on a bunch of weekly specials that revolve around Travis Kelce because people are just trying to hammer Kelce props, right? Just based on Taylor Swift alone. And I don't think it's going to be inspiring for the Jets. I don't think anything can inspire the Jets. They stink, and if Zach Wilson's playing quarterback, it probably won't matter. But if this is a blowout, it's going to be all Taylor Swift.
Does FanDuel have odds on how long this relationship could last? Because
I
would
know.
hammer. I would get after the under very quickly if it's at a certain duration.
I can't imagine they do, but I guess anything's possible. Grappler, look that up. Here's a former NFL All-Pro, author and founder of the Project Transition Foundation, Marcellus Wiley. Are you prepared for hours on hours of Taylor Swift on Sunday night?
Oh, man, it's coming, so prepared or not, here we are, brother. I mean, you got Travis Kelce, Mr. Swag himself, that I have not met a young lady who isn't in or love with that guy, and it's just facts. And then now you get Taylor Swift, the biggest artist out there, at least the biggest single artist out there, Beyonce's taken, and look what we got, gas meets fire. So we're going to run with this one, and I'm the guy that likes to run with it, even though I don't like where we're going with it, because I don't know enough about Taylor Swift. I don't know her music enough. I just know she's a mega superstar, and it's kind of good to get the casual person interested in something I love, like football, even if it's from some cotton candy reasons, like Taylor Swift is not even dating him, but just going to the game and acting like she's married already to him. So I'll take it like we get it, man. The end justifies the means.
Was there a statement made last night? If I were to offer you these two options, the Lions made a statement that they're for real, or the Packers made a statement that they're not ready for prime time, which one would you sell?
Ah, man. I'm buying that the Lions are for real, so I'm selling I don't think the Packers have to figure themselves out. And you got to think about it. What a cultural shift. In the last 30 years, we've had two quarterbacks, and now here's your third. And I just don't think there's enough buy-in to the offense, enough understanding. One thing I learned from football is that so much of it is nonverbal communication. So it starts off with a play, and we all get into the huddle. Every single football play basically has a timeout built into it, which is called the huddle. We love it. We're hearing the play called, we break. And then as robots, day one, you do exactly what that says. But as you start to learn and become nuanced and veteran and savvy, you start to realize, oh, you can play around with this same play. More than that, you can go out there and communicate with your teammates in different ways, almost without speaking, how we can do this differently. So the wrinkles, the levels, they don't even have those yet because they don't have that buy-in and trust in Jordan Love. And frankly, I don't think he's dropped his shoulders yet to really feel comfortable at the position. So it's so early, but you can see flashes of talent from not only him, but for this team. But these slow starts, in part, is just a robot going out there the first half, just trying to be literal with the play. In the second half, you find yourself down and you just say, forget it. You know, throw caution to the wind and play. So I think that they're going to get better, but I already know that Detroit is good. Detroit is somewhere between a real team that's contending and a team that's just going to be in a fight with you, and you're going to beat them, but they're going to mess you up. You're going to have to go to the doctor to deal with these scratches and bruises. That's where they are right now.
I think with Detroit, too, especially the start of the Campbell era here, there was a little bit of a shock factor just because of the personality he has, and it's a little bit goofy. But I'll tell you what, man, his team is very well prepared, and they execute at a really high level. Are you surprised that this team is that organized and they can still execute at a high level and do it on the field? Like, everyone can draw it up, right? But to actually do it on the field, that's a different story. And it seems like they get it done. And Jared Goff, he's good in prime time. Like, a lot of things are going well for them, and I don't think it's an accident.
Yeah, I agree. It's not an accident. I played with Dan Campbell. He's a teammate of mine, and just knowing him personally, they always say that the team takes on the mental makeup of its coach. You know, I've seen it go both ways, but this team certainly is. So Dan Campbell had his limitations as a player in terms of his physical gifts. But boy, talking about mentality, talking about approach, talking about discipline, talking about being ready, and talking about being tough. All of the above is Mr. Campbell, man. And it's funny to watch his team literally go out there and reflect all of those attributes every time I see him play. So there was never any doubt with me in terms of this team being tough and being disciplined and being ready. The only thing was his intensity. I didn't know if it would translate to all the guys like it has, because sometimes that gets lost in translation, especially when you don't have stripes. When you're a new head coach, people will say, hey, man, you're coming in too hot. Like, relax, earn something, win something, then come at me like that. But Dan has commanded and demanded the respect of these guys, and they've given it to him really fast, really early. So it's good to see. He's going to always be that guy that's going to be your friend no matter what's going on. And now you can see that bar fight kind of mentality starting to show on the field. They are mucking it up.
With Marcellus Wiley. So last night, you know, felt like it was a battle for the NFC North, the two top teams in the North, and Detroit came in to Lambeau and made a big statement. Now we got to battle the AFC East, and it's supposed to be beautiful weather in Buffalo. You got the Bills at home against the Dolphins. The Dolphins have been the storyline of the NFL through 3 weeks, crushing teams. The Bills, though, they generally beat Miami. You know, Josh Allen's won a lot of ball games against this team, and they're at home. Who do you like and why this week, Buffalo and Miami?
Oh, this is so tough. You know, my heart pumps some Buffalo blood, but I got to see Miami live in person. Even though the Chargers were winning most of that game, I was just amazed at the team talent that the Dolphins possess. Now, it comes out in their speed, comes out in their athleticism. They're able to stretch the field and compromise your defense. They're able to test you all the way up and down the field, and that's why they're having such early success. The way that you beat a team like that, when you know that they're going to probably have you matched, if not beat, in the talent department, is you outsmart and you out-heart them. Now, the Buffalo Bills can do that, but the only way they're going to be able to do that is if Josh Allen is on his A game. And his A game is not just throwing the football. It's running around, making sure that he breaks the pocket in terms of scrambling, just compromises their defense so everything is not just static. Not everything is just a simple traditional play. He really has to make that defense guess what they're going to do next. He does that. I pick Buffalo, but I think all things considered, I think Miami's just rolling right now. That offense is hard to figure out, and even if you figure out, it's hard to keep up with. So I say the Dolphins win.
We're through 3 weeks now, and I feel like we have a pretty good sample size of what a lot of these teams are at this point and what they're going to be for the season. Obviously, things still need to play out. But who's your biggest disappointment so far? Like, there's some pretty good candidates. The Vikings have to be in, like the Jags. I don't know if you want to go there with the Chargers. I know that's close to your heart, but like, who's been the most disappointing for you?
It would be the most disappointing the Chargers because they did get a win. And look, they should have beat Miami. And now you know how valuable that win would have been if you beat Miami. And they were winning most of that game. Minnesota right now, tell you the truth, they've lost 4 straight going even back to last year. These close games. Remember they won all their close games? Or were they like 8-0? And now they're like 0-4, and they just keep coming up short. Kirk Cousins is out there having a great year statistically, but the impact's not there. You know that's a talented team. Justin Jefferson, like they got household names everywhere. And you're like, they haven't won a game yet. So I would have to go there. Trevor Lawrence is interesting. He's not off to the fast start as expected. We'll see what he does overseas this weekend. But I would have to say Minnesota, and they're in a class by themselves just because I had higher expectations for them. Everyone else has got them a win here or there, an ugly win, a loss here or there, but they've tasted both sides. Minnesota, for some reason, haven't gotten over the hump to even get a W yet.
So if you're the Jets and things keep going that way for Minnesota, are you picking up the phone and trying to get Kirk Cousins?
No. I hate to say this. The Jets are in the worst conundrum ever. Like, this is just a dilemma. 2 bad choices, okay? One, you don't believe in Zach Wilson, and you know you don't. Forget what you say because your actions speak louder than your words. He's already been benched before. We already had the backups become more popular, fan favorites, team favorites. You went out there and got almost a 40-year-old to come replace him for a few years. And now he's the man again, Zach Wilson. No one, and I mean no one, believes that. So everyone who said that is deemed a liar, including you, Coach Saleh. So now you're saying, okay, we're trying to act like we care and believe in him, but we really don't. So that's misleading the team. But then you could say, okay, behind closed doors, let's go get somebody else, Kirk Cousins or one of these veteran quarterbacks, someone off the street. And then you're like, that's not going to work either because the guy's going to be thrown to the fire immediately. Doesn't know our playbook. We don't have any chemistry. There's no nonverbal communication. And then even if it works, to what degree is it going to work? Are we going to win a Super Bowl with this guy off the streets? No. And we're going to have to get rid of him anyway because next year Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing. He's going to be healthy again. So, talking about one way bad, the other way worse, that's where the Jets are right now. They just got to ride it through, man. Hope that they don't drown, tread water, get back to shore, and then get Aaron Rodgers back on that next year.
Yep, it's a crazy scene, but it's a reality. Season was over. 4 snaps in. It's done. No looking back now. He is Marcellus Wiley. Enjoy the weekend, Marcellus. We'll do it again next week.
All right, brothers. Take care up there, guys. Talk to you soon.
You got it. Marcellus Wiley, former NFL All-Pro, or TSN NFL analyst. And, Jets, they still got a lot of primetime games, right? So you got to watch it. Like, you can't avoid them. You have to watch what's going to happen here with New York moving forward. And I'll tell you what, the Jags, because they're in Jacksonville, they have no national profile. No one ever pays attention to them. But they're not far off the top of my list for most disappointing. And if they don't get a win this week against an Atlanta team that's been pretty good through 3 weeks, it is panic-inducing at that point. Like, then they really start freaking out with what could be happening down in Jacksonville, because everyone thought, myself included, they would build off the wild card win last year that was wild against the Chargers and Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, and it just hasn't.
And they're
going to
flip the script, right? Like Jacksonville, similar to the Jets.
Yep.
Where every year it's like, hey, there's high expectations, there are high hopes, and they always find a way to kind of puke it away. And they're almost on the cusp of that, right? Like this week will be very telling. I think the Bengals got to be in that conversation as well as far as disappointing teams.
Yeah, they got the Titans this week at Tennessee. That's not an easy game. It's been a pretty wild start to the NFL season, and I'm sure the shockwaves will continue this weekend. We have a pair of tickets to give away. We've been doing this all week. This is a really cool giveaway. Comedy icon Jerry Seinfeld will be performing live May 10th at Casino Rama. Here's your chance to win a pair of tickets to the show. Phone lines are open, 416-870-1050, 416-870-1050. Caller 10 right now, 416-870-1050. Caller 10, you pick up a pair of tickets to see Jerry Seinfeld live at Casino Rama. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.ca. That's Ticketmaster.ca to see the great Jerry Seinfeld up at Casino Rama. 416-870-1050. All right, we'll revisit our conversation with Jays starter Chris Bassitt. Jays Rays tonight after the Jays finally got a win against the Yankees last night. That's it for the Yanks. You don't have to worry about them. They're out. They're done. The Sox, see you later. Pack your bags. You're gone. Baltimore's going to the playoffs. Tampa's going to the playoffs. It feels very likely the Jays are going to. They just got to take care of business. So we'll revisit our chat with Chris Bassitt. That's in about 20 minutes. And Bob Weeks will join us. Some wild scenes in Rome today at the Ryder Cup where the Europeans absolutely laid a beating on the Americans. And Zach Johnson has no idea what he's saying. He is talking so much awkward, just bloviating garbage right now about his team, about being proud somehow. They're getting smoked through day one. So Bob Weeks will join us to recap that look ahead to day 2 of the Ryder Cup. Bobby Weeks will join us in about 45 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Jays Rays tonight. Chris Bassitt coming up in about 15 minutes. He hit 200 innings last night, and their staff has been outstanding all year. It really has been, and they're in the driver's seat. It was a big win last night. Still got Seattle chasing you, Houston chasing you. But it seems very likely if the Jays can take care of some business this weekend, you're heading down to the Trop. You'll play Tampa, best 2 out of 3. Let's see what happens.
A couple bats come alive last night. Varsho with a solo home run. Matt Chapman pitching in. Like, that's encouraging when you got some guys that haven't really been that consistent with the bat starting to heat up at the right time. Like, it's kind of what you're looking for right now because the pitching's been great. Rotation's been great. Bullpen's been great for the most part, aside from like a Romano bluff here or there, or blunder here or there. But I don't know, man. Bats coming alive, it seems like anyways.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't picture a scenario where they come alive like to the extent that it just carries this team. Like, Bassitt was saying earlier, they're built on pitching and defense. That their DNA is not going to change game 160, 161, 162. But if they want to have any chance at making any noise, your bats are going to have to carry you for a few games. You can't win every game 2-1 or 3-2.
Just get hot. Just a little streaky, like just a little hot streak.
Just
that's
get
all
clutch.
You need. Yes.
And that's, I think, really difficult to do. You're right. It's more likely to just get hot and for whatever reason everything's fine on the barrel of the bat as opposed to, being more comfortable in really clutch situations. But that's more so what it is going to end up being is who's going to give you a big hit when you need it late in a ball game where maybe you didn't deserve to win, but you found a way to do it because you rallied in the 7th or rallied in the 8th. And, that's how you keep it, moving the line down, right, in the playoffs. And that applies to every sport. You're going to have to win some games where it doesn't even make sense. Well, but you found a way to do it.
And now they've got to be asking themselves the question, like, Gausman's going to go game 1. There's no doubt about that.
Unless he goes Sunday, though, Frank.
I know.
He might have to.
That's the only way he's not going, if he has to go Sunday. But then where do you go game 2? Do you go Bassitt or do you go Berrios?
I would go Bassitt 2, Berrios 3.
Yeah. I would too.
Especially
because it's not like it's going to be on the road, correct?
Yes, they're on the road regardless. Either Tampa or Minnesota, you're on the road. And the way Bassitt, like Berrios, to your point, has pitched outstanding at home all year.
Yes.
If it was at the Rogers Center, I might change my mind on that. But Bassett has come home so strong. Like, he's pitched down the stretch so well. Veteran guy, playoff experience. Barrios does as well. I just feel more comfortable Gosman into Bassett into Barrios, and I think that's been clarified. And I think Kikuchi's definitely a part of your playoff roster, and he's probably a middle relief guy. Like, if Barrios gives you 3 innings, maybe it's once or twice through the order, you go to Kikuchi and you almost pair them together, or game 2 with Bassett, whatever it might be. But strategies change. You're going to have to go to the bullpen a lot more. But still, it was a really cool night last night with Bassett hitting 200 innings on the nose. Jays shut out the Yankees, and we'll catch up with Chris again in about 10 minutes. And Bob Weeks will join us on day 1 of the Ryder Cup, where it was a bloodbath. The Europeans absolutely laid a beating on the Americans. What happened and why, and what can we expect moving forward? Bob Weeks coming up in the final hour. Get to our best bets, brought to you by FanDuel as well. Final hour coming up with Frankie Corrado. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.